Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Thorns Show. I'm Ann Schatz, and as always, delighted to have you with us. Our guest today is a guy who is a huge part of the Portland Thorn coaching staff, assistant Rich Gunney. Rich, thanks so much for being with us today.
Delighted to be here, Ann.
Attaboy. All right, now before we dive into last weekend's match against FC Casey, give us an idea, a little elevator idea, pitch, if you will, of your specific duties with the Thorns.
Yeah, so I'm in my 5th season with the team now as assistant coach, and it's been a really enjoyable period of time working closely with Mark and the rest of the staff. And assistant coach role in terms of supporting each day to prepare the team. I work closely on kind of opposition analysis, and then our attacking and defensive restart set plays. And then a variety of roles. I mean, the role of a coach, you've got to wear multiple hats, and you've got to be willing to muck in and get help out in a number of areas where needed. So, but main role is working daily with the players and the team, and supporting Mark to be able to prepare the team for competition each week.
Okay, speaking of competition, let's talk about that match that you just played as we tape at Providence Park, that 2-0 victory over Kansas City, 8th clean sheet of the season. And by the way, it keeps you atop of the NWSL table at the season's halfway point. What are the little things, the little details that you, as a coach, that really stand out to you?
I think first and foremost, I think we're, like you said, we're at the midpoint of the season now, regular season. Things are looking good from the outside looking in. Top of the table, like you mentioned, we're in a really strong position. But I think as a coach, you're always analysing, observing, and making sure that, is it a true reflection? Is there any areas of detail that you need to focus on? What are the strengths, and making sure that we are aware of those and retain those, and give the players confidence in the areas that they're performing well. And
what'd you like about that Kansas City win? I mean, when you talk about strengths and areas that struck a chord with you, what are some of those in that victory?
Well, ironically, we'd probably actually be a little bit critical ourselves in Kansas City game. It wasn't one of our strongest performances. But again, it's the nuances of the game that the players turned up, they competed individually, they worked hard collectively, and they were solid as a group in a number of areas. And we'll probably reflect on that game with some frustrations that we weren't quite as fluid as we wanted to be in attack. But then we were also probably pleased with, again, we were rock solid defensively, got exposed to a few attacks that we'd want to address and be better, stop at source. But you can't, the psychology part of a clean sheet, like you mentioned, keep the momentum rolling, and that determination from the team to keep the high standards in a number of areas. So pleasing with the result, performance-wise, we go back to work and keep trying to improve.
All right, we're heading to the next segment, Rich. This usually puts our guest on the hot seat. Know your teammate, and usually we ask teammates about a teammate, but now we're going to kind of flip the script a little bit, and it's know your coach. That's you. I'm going to ask you questions about you. There's no possible way you can screw this up, but we're going to do little tidbits before we really get to know you. So here we go. Where were you born?
I was born in Cardiff, Wales.
Hence that wonderful, wonderful dialect. All right. How or when did you meet Coach Parsons? Because it's been a while.
Yeah, so we met, I'm going to say 2010, and we were rivals at opposite clubs in London, on the outskirts of London, Chelsea and Fulham, English Premier League clubs. And then we spent some time on the UEFA A licence coaching course together, and that's where we really got to know each other. Unfortunately for both of us, we spent 13 days in the same group working together in the same hotel, and it was going to go one of two ways. Either we were going to get on swimmingly or rub each other up the wrong way. Unfortunately, fortunately for us, it's been a long-term friendship since then.
I hear you. Obviously and evidently. All right, you were the head coach for a Wales women's national team. what was the sport that we're talking about?
So I was the head coach of the Wales men's national team. It was a senior men's indoor futsal.
Was it for the men, not the women?
Correct, men's.
Okay. And we're going to talk about your futsal adventures a little later in the show. But what years were you head coach for the fellas?
2010 to 2016, 2017.
Okay. So you had a good 6-year tenure with them, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay. Your daughter, that beautiful daughter of yours, Ava, loves the Thorns, goes to all your home games. Who is her favorite Thorn player?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. So her favorite player is Lindsay, but she also has a very soft spot for Madison Pogacar as well.
Okay, but if I'm not mistaken, Lindsay may even be a pet name that she's going to go for if you guys ever get that dog.
She's a futuristic pet name. So Ava has told me that she wants a dog, and she has a list of 10 names, and one of those names was Lindsay Horan.
Okay. All right, now this one's gonna be a little tricky because it's going to mean that you have to remember the conversation we had on the phone a few days ago. You ready?
Okay, far away.
Who is my favorite all-time Welsh footballer?
Well, Wales is a pretty special country that produces a plethora of talent in all forms of sport and the arts and etc. But I'm going to go for Jess Fishlock as your favorite player.
Okay, now I'm going to get run out of town for this one, Rich, because we know Jess is a thorn, if you will, in the Thorn side. But I got to tell you, buddy, I love the way she plays. I know you do too.
Yeah, no, she's a talented player, and she's been a huge performer in this league and across the globe. Really, she's been putting Wales on the map in the women's game for a number of years, and testament to her. She's a huge player for our rivals up the road.
So I got to admit, I love the play of Fishlock. All right, segment 3. It's called Extra Time. I really, really love this because we even get to root around a little deeper into your world on and off the pitch. All right. You grew up in Wales, as you mentioned, dreaming of playing pro soccer, I would imagine, even made it to the semi-pro level, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You said you had a light bulb moment while at university, kind of poking around into this whole idea of perhaps coaching. What was the light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, I think it was my second year of studies, and I wasn't 100% sure exactly the direction I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to work in sport. I knew that football was my passion, and I attended my first coaching course, and the instructor was inspirational. He kind of made me aware that it could be a future career and a possible pathway, and that was it. That was the moment. So from then on, it was educating myself and dedicating myself to the profession and the craft, and trying to develop myself. And I'm pleased to say it was I feel fortunate that ever since then that's all I've ever done is worked in the game and worked in coaching full time. So it's been a great kind of almost 20 years now.
So the light bulb moment sticks. Your coaching career begins. You go to England. You're back to Wales. You mentioned this wonderful futsal opportunity. How has that sport, it's such an interesting, fast-paced, condensed soccer, if you will, how has that helped influence you on the pitch with soccer?
I think in coaching, you're always trying to develop your skills and develop your knowledge. And I think, the opportunity that I had really threw me out of my comfort zone. I was working in the women's game, working with talented female athletes at the youth level, Fulham Football Club, and I was having a great time and develop myself as a coach. But this opportunity to go back home and work for the National Association and develop the game in Wales at all levels of the game, but it was in futsal, which there's no history, there's no culture of the game in Wales. So it was a case of a bit like the Pacific Northwest. Wales is famous for wet weather in the winter months, especially, and so taking all the players indoors and playing futsal was a great development tool. But fortunately for me, there was also the opportunity to coach the senior men's national team. And so I spent 6 years dedicating myself to studying the game across Europe, playing in FIFA and UEFA competitions across Europe. And it was a unbelievable education for me as a person, because it really tested me in terms of the absolute details of the game. The principles of football and futsal are exactly the same. It's just the kind of small-sided nature of the game makes everything magnified, and it's extremely challenging for the players and the coaches. So a huge part of my education, a huge part of my development. I think it's really, it's really helped me in my coaching career, and I try to bring some of those elements and remember some of those elements when I'm kind of thinking about the game now in terms of the 11-side version of the game.
Okay. Just that whole notion of how futsal and football, the interconnection and how they can bring the best out of each other, I think is really fascinating. And it seems futsal's kind of started, oh, that's kind of a cool game, into this can help us on the pitch outside.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a misconception about the kind of the skill and the flair part of futsal, but really actually the international game and the elite game it's all the principles of the game in terms of attack, defense, transition. The discipline needed in futsal is of the highest level. The finest margins of mistakes in tackle defense, your positioning gets exploited. So it's a great tool in terms of really fine tuning that those details. And here with the Thorns, we play 5v5 small sided on certain days to fire up and get ready for competition, and it's no different there. The smallest margins are kind of exploited, and it's the kind of same principles that you apply with football and futsal.
It was interesting during the Q&A, all those answers you got correctly, by the way. When you talked about meeting Coach Parsons back in 2010, let's flesh out some of those details with the backstory. I read a quote where Mark kind of laughingly said, as you guys were at rival academies, that you would develop the talent and then he would poach them. Is there any accuracy to that, or was he just being a wise guy?
No, 100% accurate. Absolutely. Yeah. So Fulham was the smaller club of Chelsea, obviously, and Mark was at Chelsea. So the players would get to the age of 15, and unfortunately the lure of the first team at Chelsea women. We would often lose our most talented players to go across town to Chelsea, and Mark would take all the plaudits for developing those players. But they were Fulham at heart, is how I like to see it.
There it is, and clearly, as you also mentioned, you guys getting some licensing certifications together. 13 days, you're in small quarters. You're going to love each other, or you're going to think, "Get me out of here." That obviously worked out to the tune of when you and your family get to the United States. Mark then approaches you soon thereafter with a coaching job with the Thorns. How did that all play out?
Yeah, I'd been out to the US a number of times since kind of early in my career after university, and always had fond memories of coming out here and working. And I went out to Virginia to help Mark get set up when he first moved out here, and so we had a close connection, kept in touch, and then the opportunity presented itself. And I think that coming to this club with this fan base and all the infrastructure here, and it was always something that working in the professional game is something that I was passionate to do, and to work closely with Mark. I mean, we've been working together 5 of his 6 years, and it's been, we've had lots of highs, some lows, but mainly, it's been an extremely successful period of time, and we've worked well together, and it's been a really enjoyable experience. But when he presented the opportunity, it was something that I think was great for myself, the career, and also the family. So we've had a thoroughly enjoyable time here for the last 5 years.
So are you a different coach now than when you started with the Thorns some 5 years ago? And if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to keep moving forward. You have to keep learning and developing your craft, your skill set. And I think that I felt that 5 years ago I had a lot to offer and bring to the table in the sense of my own experiences and the environments that I've been in. But you have to learn and adapt and be open to new experiences and other viewpoints and other perspective. And everyone else has their own experiences to bring to the table. And I think that working with this team, working in this environment. It's a pressure cooker environment because of for this club, it's so fiercely connected to the community and what this club represents and the standards that Mark and the club have set in terms of a culture. Daily, you have to be the best you can be, but like I say, I think that you have to be open to learn and developing. It's a lifelong learning, the craft of coaching, and if you don't have that approach, you're just going to stand still and fall behind at some point. So no, I hope that I've strengthened my skill set and knowledge, and will continue to do so.
As you said, talk less, listen more. I loved it when you said that the other day in our chat. Let's get back to business on the pitch, my friend. Rough stretch awaits, interesting stretch, fun stretch, challenging stretch. 3 of the next 4 regular season games on the road. And we know how important those road points are, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
So when you look at the game at a time approach, it literally is in the front vision right now, literally a game at a time with this stretch coming up. How do you approach it as a coaching staff?
Yeah, you have to stay focused and just continue with the process of one game at a time. And I know that can sound like a cliche, and there has to be more to it than that. And of course there is. There's long-term planning and there's long-term views and thoughts. But if you get distracted with those too much, you quickly stumble and slip up. And so it's just about one day at a time, 1 week at a time, and one game at a time. And I think that, like you say, the travel and go into the East Coast and the stretch that we have, it's going to be physically and psychologically demanding on the players and the staff. And so all we have to do is just keep preparing the team to perform at the highest levels and brush up on those fine margins of areas where we can steal some marginal gains and keep improving, and stick to our principles, which is, we want to attack our opposition and play a brand of the game and a brand of soccer that we can all be proud of, and that's what we'll keep doing each day. But this stretch is going to be tough, but I think the team's really well equipped to, if we do encounter any bumps, which we did at the start of the season, with the Seattle, Orlando back-to-back games, and we were under some pressure and some scrutiny internally. Whatever happens externally, inside the group, we put ourselves into that scrutiny, and we got the performance on the road against Gotham to get us back on track. And I'm confident that if we encounter any bumps, we'll be well equipped to deal with that. But off to Washington next. Tough game, tough task, but we'll be. I think we'll be in a good place and fighting to bring home the victory. What has stood out to you, Rich, about this group holding down the fort so well while so many starters are in Tokyo? I mean, they have to take a lot of plaudits individually and collectively. I think it's the strength of the club and the strength of the group that, it's almost, we've had injuries, and it's almost being a case of, and it's not as simple as this, but it's almost the next player up. And I think that this year more than ever, we've been equipped to, we have a clear style of play, a clear plan of attack, and the players are really invested and bought in, and collectively as a group, we're really strong. And everyone understands how we're trying to play in our attacking defensive principles. And we're just ready to apply those. And any adjustments that we need to make in terms of personnel and players going away on international duty, coming back, I think that there's a real kind of positive attitude around the group that everyone has their part to play. Everyone is contributing, and everyone's working so hard for the kind of, the bigger goals, but at the same time, on a daily and weekly basis, the performance levels have been so high, and that's what stood us in such great stead in this period of time. And I'll be honest, I had utmost confidence that this would be the case, though, because I think over a number of years, this club and this group continually performing all different parts of the season, and now it's just a case of making sure we keep this going and finish strong in the home stretch as well. Amen.
All right, Rich, that's going to do it. Man, thanks so much for taking the time to be a part of this show with your busy schedule. Such a treat to get to know you. Good luck in the coming weeks, and go Thorns.
Thank you, Ann. Absolutely. Let's go.
Cheers.
Cheers.